Native Plant Society. This is our monthly meeting, virtual meeting again, and our first of the new season, the new year of our, I guess the year seems to run from now through next summer. So, and we are going to, so welcome everyone. And the first event, the first thing on this meeting will be selecting our officers or election. And Denise will be sharing a poll. Somehow you will see an election, a slate of officers, and all four of us, the current officers, have agreed to continue for one more year. And I know for myself, I want to change a year from now. And then there's of course several other people, 6 or 8 other people that are active board members, or 10 others that either totally volunteer, or are appointed, agree to take on a whole range of other tasks. But following our bylaws, it's the 4 officers that need to be formally elected through an election, this process that's happening right now. So I gather each person has a screen, and you punch yes or no if you approve, and if there's any discussion, and hosts and panelists cannot vote. So that's okay, everyone else gets to vote. And if anyone of the panelists objects to the slate, I guess we'll have to deal with them later.
We have 12 out of 19 votes. So everyone, this will end after 1 minute. So please go ahead and make your selection, a simple yes or no to approve the slate.
I don't see a button to actually push. It just has polling in the results, but no actual choice for me.
Same here, yeah.
I believe that's true for the participants, or the panelists. Well, it is the attendees.
I support the palette.
Me too.
Likewise.
Thumbs up,
Yeah.
everybody. Very
Thank you.
good. All right. Thank you all for voting. Are you comfortable with ending the poll, Alan?
Yes. I think we've done a good, I don't know if we have a quorum of some form or other. I don't know, quorum that we'll have to do. And since it's not no contests involved, no one should be worried about it. So,
all right.
No lurking hidden mystery candidates out there, as far as I know.
And here's our results.
Okay.
I will go ahead and email that to you, Alan.
Sure.
It's in a spreadsheet, but thank you.
All right. Well, we will continue on. Now, Jim Kling is in charge of the program with help from Katrina and Anu. But the first part of the meeting will be a short discussion of stewardship. And following that, Jim will take charge with the various presentations of right about summer activities, and I don't know what else. Is that true, Jim?
Yeah, pretty much, yes, that's correct.
Jim has organized this meeting, and I've been actually out of internet, no internet at my house for a week now, and being a little scattered about how things are going. The whole world
you're here.
is a little scattered just now. But I'm sitting outside my neighbor's house in the smoke, but I'm breathing, choking a little bit. So stewardship, it's been an important part of the chapter since Abe was the chapter president, and I'm sure long before that. 3 years ago, we had our first stewardship class directed out of the state office. And fixing Vicki's fingers. So anyhow, we had our first stewardship class from a grant at the state, coming from the state office. And then a year ago, we had our, Annalise, who will be one of the speakers for this topic of stewardship, is available and will be brought in a moment. I assume Jim can do that as the host. So a year ago, just exactly a year ago, last September, our second stewardship class with the same instructor, Jim Evans, who had been the statewide stewardship coordinator 3 years ago. He was again the instructor for the second class, but the second class, the recent class, was actually sponsored and largely paid for by the city of Bellingham. So it was a cooperative effort. It was, but a big major part of the funding was from the city of Bellingham, and a lot of other expenses were covered by the Native Plant Society ourselves. So stewardship, getting out in the natural areas or areas that need to be restored to nature, helping the native plants and their habitats to thrive, restore to better state than they may have been in if they've been abused. And that's the stewardship, is to get out and help. Our goal, of course, is to appreciate and care for native plants and their habitats. And stewardship is just the hands-on work of, could be hands-on in terms of educating the public, or hands-on physically pulling invasive plants or replanting with native plants where they've just been displaced or disappeared. And so, and Annalise Burns of the city of Bellingham. So the two people for the city of Bellingham, Amy Brown and Annalise Burns, were the coordinators, overseers from the city's side of the stewardship class. And we're also in discussions about the possibility of another stewardship class, perhaps a year from now. And Annalise would like to speak about the stewardship program. And I don't know if Amy Brown is here or available this evening, but maybe
Amy is here as well. She'll need to be brought in, I think, as a panelist, the same as I was. So.
Okay, so Annalise, you may speak first, and then Jim can bring Amy on.
And actually, Amy is just joining us. So, first of all, I guess thank you for the.
There they are.
So thank you from the city of Bellingham for the opportunity to partner with Native Plant Society. Amy has really been the one who's been instrumental in forming that partnership and leading the volunteers from our side. So Amy, I think probably you're the best one to sort of speak first, and then I can fill in later.
Okay, that sounds great. Yeah, thank you for that introduction, Annalise and Alan. So I'm the Parks Volunteer Coordinator for the City of Bellingham Parks and Recreation. And I think this model of having a deeper level of education followed by an expectation of stewardship is really the model that, or similar model to what I think ultimately all of our stewardship programs should be going towards, at least having that option for that deeper level of engagement. And it's been a really huge bonus for me. I've been in my position for about 2.5 years, but to have volunteers coming in that have that deeper level of knowledge and engagement are a lot of our stewardship sites in the city rely on having longer term adopters, we call them park stewards, to complete critical site maintenance in the restoration process. We don't really have the resources or capacity to do that. And so the volunteer work has been just amazing. And I don't know how much time I have, Alan, but I can just throw out a few numbers and little stories if you'd like, if that works. Okay, great. I don't want to talk too long. So we had 29 participants completed our course, which was a 30-hour, 6-week stewardship course. And 22 of those participants formally adopted City of Bellingham sites as park stewards, including Annalise 10 volunteers adopting Public Works Natural Resources sites at Chuckanut Marsh, Squalicum Creek Reroute, Patton Creek Estuary, and Squalicum Creek Park Willow Spring. 5 also just wanted to attend our regularly scheduled Parks Volunteer Program Saturday work parties, and 2 were volunteering elsewhere, either in Seattle or with Audubon. And total thus far, this is just the number of volunteer hours that have been reported in 2020. We've had 936 volunteer hours reported by these native plant stewards. And for perspective, the total number of reported park steward hours in 2019 was 1,490. So this is already 63% of all of our park steward hours just reported last year. So absolutely incredible. And we have over 80 park stewards total. So this is just one small slice that is just doing an incredible number of hours. I will add that one of the reasons why those numbers are really big is because of one individual named John Bremer, who he has completed 618 hours alone at Whatcom Falls Park. If you're familiar with where the St. Clair Park entrance is, raise your hand. I don't know, I can only see the panelists. You know where that is? And you walk to the right, to the south, downstream. So it's not south. Anyway, if you walk downstream in that direction, you'll see a huge area that has tons and tons of ivy that has been removed from that site and cut down. I don't know if John's even on this meeting, but there are piles of ivy and blackberry that are well over the size of my head, like taller than I am. And I am 11 feet tall. So that's really, really tall. And it's just the amount of work that he's done alone is just incredibly inspiring. But we have other amazing volunteers as well. Our other top 10 volunteer leaderboard volunteers are Leslie Rigg, who's contributed 55 hours at Connolly Creek Nature Area. And Leslie also holds the excuse me, the title of also just leading some of an incredible number of work parties herself to engage other volunteers. Vanessa Story also has done 45 hours at Whatcom Falls, Connolly Creek Nature Area, Patton Creek Estuary, Cornwall Park, and Fairhaven Park. And I can keep listing other names, but Rebecca Mercado has reported 35 hours, Jennifer Jones, 31 hours, Janice Hotman, 31 hours, Elizabeth Rizzo, 29 hours, Crystal Rodriguez, 21 hours, and there are many more amazing volunteers. I don't want to just have an on and on list. But I'm also just really thrilled by just the amount of stewardship and that's been happening at these parks. You can actually see real change happening just in in the last year. The changes that I'm seeing at Cornwall Park and at Fairhaven Park are really, really amazing. And it's in large part thanks to these really dedicated stewards. A couple of quotes I have this is from Jennifer Jones at Broadway Park, and she says, "We have been regularly visited by many of the neighbors while we work. They are very happy we are cleaning up this area. Many even expressed a desire to volunteer in the future. Here's hoping." And we are generating lots of conversations which might lead to future volunteers for the Washington Native Plant Society. And Janice Hotman also said, "The weed pile is getting big again. Cornwall Park Neighborhood Association and many neighbors say thanks for volunteering." So I could go on, and I wish I could show you more pictures of it and all that, but I'm just really bowled over with excitement for the engagement and just hope we can continue to engage our volunteers. I want to find even more ways to show our appreciation and thanks to their hard work.
Yeah, and thanks to Amy for really making this happen. This was a partnership for sure between the city and Native Plant Society. To introduce myself again, I'm Annalise Burns. I'm the Habitat and Restoration Manager for the City of Bellingham. So I work in a different department than Amy does. Amy works for the Parks Department, but together our two programs are responsible for all of the open spaces in the City of Bellingham. So we sort of divide and conquer. She has parks properties and I have the rest. And we cannot steward all the lands that we have in the city of Bellingham, all the public lands with the staff, just with city staff. And, but that is a lot of why we live in this region, is because we have places to walk, and we have wildlife corridors, and we have places that really improve our ecology, but also our quality of life. And we, in order to continue those, we need to figure out a sustainable way to steward them. And I really think that the future depends on having that be a part of our community. Is one of the ways that we are a part of this community is to give back and to participate in stewarding the lands that we love. And the Native Plant Society has really shown how that can happen, and how our enthusiasm, I'm also a member of the Native Plant Society, so our enthusiasm for native plants can propagate into other citizens adopting those kind of ethics and actions. So thank you so much for helping us pilot a project like this, figuring out how we can build this into a stronger program. And my contribution was mostly financial. So my program was the fiscal sponsor in partnership with Native Plant Society. And we're really hoping that we can find the money to continue this in the future. As we know, we're in a recession and budgets are extremely tight, but we think that this is a really efficient way to use our funds to really leverage the community and build on this program. So Amy and I are in that discussion. But I just want to say thank you also from my program. I have 12 stewards, or 12 staff that are out in the field every day. And I asked them, what was it like to have the support from the Native Plant Society stewards? And they said it was really great, that they have so much on their plate, and to know that there are other people out there really watching and caring for these sites in somewhat of a deeper way than they have time for was really meaningful. And they are happy to pick up those piles of material and provide tips and help to the stewards. But to have those stewards take the time to go out to those sites and provide that extra care meant a lot. So we had a lot of yellow flag iris taken out, or the seed pods taken out of Chuckanut Village Marsh. We had lots of ivy and thistle and other invasives taken out of the perimeter of Paddon Creek Estuary, and those are letting our native plants thrive in those areas too. So thank you from me and my staff as well. Amy, did you want to say anything about a certificate?
Yes, we are going to be sending out some certificates that for all of our volunteers that have, have completed their 30 community service hours. And let me just pull up my numbers. I think we have quite a few, not quite a few, let's see. We have actually 6 or so that have already completed their 30 hours, and they have until I think it's May 2022 to do that. So just, we're really excited to send that as a thank you. I just want to say we sort of suck at really showing appreciation as much as we should. And last year we started having some like park steward appreciation gatherings and doing more things, and we're still barely scratching the surface. And with the pandemic, all of that's on hold. And that's something that's like a personal goal of mine, is to find more ways that we can show our appreciation for everyone who's volunteering. Yeah, just we really, it's what keeps me going. And what the most exciting thing about my job is having people that are really engaged and excited and telling stories. I get a lot of regular emails and stories coming in from a lot of these native plant stewards telling me about the work they're doing and sending me texts and pictures of various plants they're seeing and wanting help identifying them. And that's been a lot of fun too. So thank you, Native Plant Society, and especially thank you, Annalise, as well, for all of your support with this. It's been absolutely critical to have you and your team behind this.
And thanks to Jim Evans, who led the classes and helped build that foundation for folks to go out in the field and be able to steward.
It's been good. It's been very good. So thank you. And unless other people would like to speak on stewardship, I will the meeting will shift to the other part of the program that Jim will be hosting and monitoring.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Thanks, Amy and Annalise, and for talking about the stewardship program. It's great. Really excited about the future of that. So today we basically invited some folks to share some pictures of what they've seen this summer, some plants and insects and other observations. We've got Vicki Jackson and Abe Lloyd and Fred Rhoades are gonna join us. And I also encourage, if you have any pictures you'd like, any of the attendees, if you have any pictures you'd like to share after those, we can promote you to a panelist and see if we can get screen sharing working for you. It's pretty easy to do. So we'll sort of we'll try that at the end, and then after that we'll have sort of a general meeting where we'll promote everyone who wants to be a panelist to a panelist, and we can all chat as we've done in previous meetings. I just want to point out that we have another newsletter coming up, which I myself sort of forgot about in these crazy times. So I'm looking for submissions for anyone who wants to write about their summer adventures, or write a book review or anything that you think would be interesting to our members. Please feel free to contact me. I'm at jkling, JKLING@gmail, and I'll put that in the chat so people can see that. So yeah, please do send me anything you have, pictures, trip reports, anything you like. So I think we'll start with Vicki, since I see her picture right in front of me. And we'll invite Vicki Jackson to unmute herself and share her screen, and she's gonna show us some pictures of some of the things that she's been seeing. Welcome, Vicki.
Hi. Wish I could see you all out there, but we'll make do the best we can here. I thought tonight that I have just a smattering of different images from this summer, wandering around, starting kind of this spring when the whole COVID thing came up. I was coming back from Arizona and rushed back. And since I've returned from Arizona, we got here like the end of March, I think, which was much earlier than we expected. I've spent nearly all my time outside hiking. So I could just fill 3 meetings worth of meetings with photos and whatever from just this one season of getting out and about. So what I'm just gonna do is I just took some highlights of different things and kind of focusing on spots that are a little out of the way. I think as we all kind of floundered and tried to figure out what the heck this COVID experience was about and what we were allowed to do and what we weren't allowed to do. And having public lands closed down and still being able to go outside and exercise. I took it upon myself to explore properties and areas that I hadn't adventured in as much. And some of these are owned by the Whatcom Land Trust. And I want to say thank you, Whatcom Land Trust, for everything you do and the wonderful lands that you have. And it's been a wonderful pleasure of wandering this spring in particular through these lowland properties where I might not see anybody all day long. But as the kind of whole season and COVID thing changed and the Forest Service lands opened up and the snows melted, I have some images of higher up and more public lands. So I thought I'd just kind of go through a few of these and share some screen, see if I can get my screen to share properly here. Let's see how this works. So I thought I'd start, actually this is a spot that is on public lands, and it's a secret one that a few in our chapter have been to before. Barry brought us there quite a few years ago to investigate a rare orchid. And I've been intrigued by this area since then, and have gone back this spring on kind of a journey that I took a group of my sister and a dear friend that hikes with me all the time and my son. And we managed to get some kayaks into what we call the mystery wetland. And this is in kind of off Mount Baker Highway. I don't think it has a formal name, but it's a beaver system that is just phenomenal. It's one of the most beautiful wetlands I've ever seen. I was in there not to hunt for the orchid that Barry had brought us down to see before, but I was actually after amphibians, but I don't have any pictures of that today. Here's another view of the wetland, and it's early spring, so things are just waking up in there. All those bumps that you see in across the water are sphagnum mats. So they're all covered with sphagnum mosses, and things were just barely waking up. Some different sedges were coming up, and that kind of brown stuff you see in the water is a bog buckbean that was just emerging for the spring. And you see, I think my sister in the red kayak in the back, and my son standing up in his kayak, poling around in the wetland there. All those trees you see were flooded by beaver long ago. They're big and huge and impressive. It's just a little closer view, and you can see my son on the left side getting down and close to the the water looking at things. But this is bog buckbean just kind of popping up for the spring in through there. But a phenomenal wetland, and if anybody wants to get a hold of me, I'm happy to share selected, just, you know, a little bit of information about the wetland. We don't want tons of people wandering through this one. Baker Lake was another place we visited, and here's my son next to a just giant big tree, that cedar with massive burls there. And one of the things that we noticed driving out going to the Baker River Trail, going down the end of the road before it turns to dirt, was all of these dead trees all the way along here. And you know, after people are done presenting, maybe somebody knows what's going on there. I tried to look up what was going on, but the trees were dead along the road, back in the forest, for a huge distance back in there. And all I can think of is that there's some kind of insect attacking that area. But I thought I'd post that picture and see if somebody knew what was really going on there. A place I've always wanted to go and have never had the opportunity to do it was Vetter Mountain in the spring, and going to see the bald vegetation that's up on that area. So Vetter Mountain is right up against the Canadian border, right next to Sumas Mountain. And this is just a view looking down, actually, not sure which direction that is, if it's actually going into Canada or if it's still in the US there. But going up this wonderful little trail is a whole bunch of interesting little plant communities. And one of the things that I thought was really magical was there was this whole patch, I don't know, it was maybe an acre in size, of red baneberries that were just everywhere in there. That's a beautiful plant that you see occasionally in the forest, sprinkled in and amongst, and in the fall has bright red berries. But this was just covered with them in through here. And here it is in its flowering stage. And I meant to go this summer and go see it with Barry, but I failed to do that. Me just in there and enjoying things. Getting to the top of Vetter Mountain, which is not a huge hike. It's a very nice, short, I think maybe 2-mile hike up to the bald. You enter an open area, which has all kinds of spring lilies and annuals up in here. And this is just a few that I've got on this slideshow with a death camas up close. Oregon Sunshine was doing beautifully up there. Camas Lickliniae was just super happy. Beautiful patches of up in there. And now we shift. So from going up high, then of course, you all know me, I've got to get my feet wet again. So this was Carex utriculata, and this was down in the upper Samish watershed where I do Oregon spotted frog work. And we're doing some habitat restoration, and we're doing some vegetation censuses in here. And I just love the structure and the beauty of this particular plant. Another one, the small fruited bulrush. When it's in flower, it just has, if you get down and spend some time looking closely, are just beautiful little plants. This one is Mare's Tail, which is, a fairly, I don't know, infrequent wetland inhabitant around here. Looks a little bit like horsetail, but is unrelated. And it is just a beautiful, I don't know, structure of it in the water. It grows in emergent areas and always looks beautiful with the reflections around it. This is, and the Mare's Tail was at Silver Lake, and this water buttercup was also at Silver Lake. It's on another one that we don't see that often. It grows submerged in the water and sends a emergent flower to the top. And the flower is only like a half-inch long across, very small. I also got onto the east side and spent some time. And this was a place that I just absolutely loved. And it was an accident that my sister and my friend Monique and I went camping and headed over there. And it was called Jameson Lake. Some of you may have been there before. It's kind of the middle of nowhere. We just went down a road, decided to veer that direction, and ended up at this amazing place in the shrub step coulee that's in here. Here's a look at Jameson Lake. It has this unique color, which apparently is due to an algal bloom that turns purple in the fall and has killed the fish in there. But beautiful, beautiful lake, and the shrub step habitat around it was amazing. And this was a new plant for me. This was a blazing star flower, very similar to one I see down in the desert, which is white down there, much smaller. But these are huge plants that were like 3 or 4 feet high. And the plant, the flower itself is probably 2 inches plus across, very stunning. Here's my friend Monique and my sister. She's playing along with the shoreline of Jameson Lake, where we've got some bulrushes that are along there and some water mints and cattails. And we actually spent a lot of time photographing bugs and insects there. In the early morning, it was cold. I spared you from those. Then we headed over to back to the Okanagan, heading more west again. And this is up near Pipestone Canyon area, where we were enjoying the Lyle's Mariposa lilies up there. The pine saps were amazing and huge, just a cool saprophyte plant. Hooker's onion, a little lily. This is the green-lined, I think green-lined Mariposa lily is a common name on that one. They were stunning. Prairie smoke were just beautiful. One of my favorite plants that I think I've run across once before, but this seemed to be my, I don't know, icon for the whole season, is the butterwort. And this is a cool predatory plant. The leaves at the base are sticky and insects stick to them, and they get stuck to the leaf and enzymes digest it. And then it sends up this beautiful purple flower on it. And this was up around Rainy Pass, but we ran into it up at Chain Lakes and several other places along the way in our hikes this summer. This one is sundew, but it's not our normal sundew, which has the round leaves. This is kind of paddle-shaped long ones, the Drosera rundifolia, or sorry, Drosera longifolia. These have long paddle ones. And I haven't run across this in the state before, but I'm sure many of you others have. It's a sphagnum obligate that's living in these wet habitats. It was a fun find for me. And then Abe may be sharing some more on this, but Abe was working on filming some stuff for his classes and invited me to come out to Summer Lake in Skagit County to have fun there. And our chapter's gone there many times over the years. We haven't done it in a few years, but it was just a total delight going out there. And it's a bog that has a lake in the center. And the interesting thing about Summer Lake, besides all the native bog vegetation that's there, are some non-natives that have been introduced and seem to be doing quite well there. And this is a yellow pitcher plant, absolutely stunning, cool plant. And they just look beautiful. We were there, I think, in July this year. Another one that you wouldn't expect to see in Washington is the Venus flytrap. And there is one little colony of it in there, and they're just doing beautiful. This is just a close-up, kind of getting down close to them, but they're quite large plants. Shifting up again, this was just a walk up into the Chain Lake system. Some pretty views there. Davidson's penstemon is one of my favorite shrubby penstemons that always put on a great show. This is another picture of the butterwort. Again, just a plant that I found charming. Glacier lily, right? Avalanche glacier, I get them, the mix them back and forth. But I rarely see this one in Whatcom County, and this one was up off of between Chain Lakes and Bagley Lakes. There's a small patch of them. And pink monkey flower with the Table Mountain in the background. And copperbush, which is up in that same area with an ant visitor. And it was the first time I think I'd seen that plant before. Beautiful shrub with these just subtle but beautiful flowers. And one of my favorite places ever. Our chapter has been up here a couple times, and this is up on Grouse Ridge. And this was put on a flower show, spectacular. This was an excellent high elevation flower year, given the late melt, and it just kind of kept a flower show going on for a long time. But that's my friend Monique. Here's another picture of Baker and Bistort and Lupin and Arnica and everything, just putting on an amazing show in here. Little alpine daisy. Another view the other direction, looking back at the backside of the Twin Tit Sisters, and a bunch of valerian and arnica, and sprinkling of Indian paintbrush. A little harebell. There's a nice colony of those up there. Mountain geum. And that, I believe, is it. So I'll end it at that.
Great. Thank you, Vicki. That was fantastic.
I can figure out how to stop sharing now. There, found it.
All right, there we are. That was great. Abe, would you like to go next?
Sure, I will go next. I thought I would pantomime. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, I am going to share 3 different places I went. Like Vicki, I was really fortunate this summer and was able to get outside a ton. And actually, Vicki kind of inspired me. I saw her iNaturalist post from Vetter Mountain, and I was like, ooh, I want to go there. So I ran out to Vetter Mountain and loved it, and then got really excited about bulbs. And in like a 2-week period, I went to 10 different bulbs, I think, in Whatcom County. And so the first one I want to show you is a new bulb that I have never heard of anybody from the Plant Society going to, and I'll just take you there on this map. So here's Lake Whatcom. We're heading northeast, I guess, up the Nooksack. And so here's Kendall. And so Sumas Mountain is over here on the left, and then Red Mountain is kind of hovering over Kendall and Paradise. And when I was scouting out potential bulbs, I was using Google Earth a lot. And I noticed this patch on Google Earth, and I was like, that looks like a bulb. And sure enough, it was a good one. And so I was studying the forest road systems, and it looked like there was good access from one of these forest roads, and it's a road that's open all the time. So Katrina and I went with some folks that live on our property, rent from us, and are also Plant Society members, Mike and Kelly, and we went out to this red mountain bald, and Mike actually had scouted it out a couple days previous because he works up at Silver Lake, and it was convenient for him to check out the road on his way home. So the road is it's like a well-maintained road, but the gravel they have gravelled it with is like quarry spalls or something. I don't know, it's really bumpy. But the trail is not very distinct, but the access is pretty easy without any bushwhacking. And, you know, in probably 25 minutes of pretty easy hiking, you could be at the top of this bald kind of overlooking the Kendall Valley. And so by this time I was pretty possessed with studying all the little bald species. And, you know, here's a view looking to the west down the Nooksack Valley. And so a lot of the species are kind of the usual bald species, but still beautiful, and it was a good time of the year to be there, like the death camas and the chocolate lilies. And there was delphinium, menziesii, or the larkspur, I think is the common name, and the Oregon sunshine. And then some shrubs that you know, before this 2-week bald bonanza, I hadn't really thought too much about shrubs on balds, and I came to realize that tall Oregon grape, even though I always figured it would be less drought tolerant because it's taller than dull Oregon grape, I saw tall Oregon grape on balds more frequently in the really dry sites than the dull Oregon grape, which seems to be more on the periphery of the balds in like Doug fir forest understories. So I saw this in almost all the balds that I visited, and started to pay more attention to where that tall Oregon grape was. Kinnickinnick. I got really into clovers. This is the few-flowered clover, or Trifolium oleganthum, and it wasn't in bloom at that time, but here's it in bloom. This was from Sumas Mountain.
Abe, I don't know if this is true for other people, but I'm still seeing the map. I'm not seeing the pictures that you're referring to. So
yeah,
picture the
I think
balls.
it's that same problem that I had when we were testing it. You've got to go out of screen sharing and then choose your other program that you're looking at, because we're all seeing Google Earth right now.
Yeah, it didn't switch screens along with it.
Okay. Is that better now?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Well, let's see. So, yeah, so the clover here, this is the few-flowered clover. Fortunately, I was just getting to the more exciting plants, so thanks for telling me of the technology flaw there. All right, so this here is Yampa, and it's not super unusual, but it's a plant that a lot of people miss because it just sort of looks like grass, but it's actually a member of the carrot family, and it has an edible root. That's why I kind of pay more attention to it. A very good tasting root. It's actually one of my favorite edible roots in the carrot family. And you know, it grows well in balds, but it doesn't show up in all the balds. I see it in a few of the Chuckanut Mountain balds, and on Sumas Mountain, and on Red Mountain. Turns out that Red Mountain actually has a really good collection of bald species. Almost all of the species that I think of as bald species are present at this Red Mountain bald. Of course, or not of course, I mean, camas isn't at all the balds, but there was some camas, so that was a delight to see. It was just kind of finishing its season when I was there. This is the common camas. And here's a cherry, and it's either European bird cherry, Prunus patus, or potentially choke cherry, which isn't really supposed to grow much on the west side, but I think it's been found in the San Juan Islands on a couple occasions. And I'm not sure, but it's something I want to follow up on because it was growing pretty well there. And it just seems like at the top of a mountain, it would be a little bit harder place for this, I don't know, for something to show up more recently, like a European bird cherry. I mean, I guess they are dispersed by birds, so they can fly uphill, but I don't know. I was intrigued by that. And then another plant that caught me by surprise is this Howell's pussytoe, Antonaria howellii. And this is a species that isn't found so much in Whatcom County. And when it is, it's usually found more in the higher mountain environment. It's found in the Meadow Valley in dry forests, usually with Doug fir. And so the closest observations that I had seen it before this were, or that I hadn't seen it, but that looking at herbarium records were Ross Lake and the South Puget prairies. And so I thought it was kind of fun to see it in these balls. And actually since then I've seen it in a couple other places near Vetter Mountain. So something to look out for if you're on exploring balds is this Howell's pussytoe, because it actually might be more common than we think. It's just kind of not that showy of a plant. And then another kind of unusual one is this Sinicula graveolens, which is I think sometimes called Sierra sanicle. It's related to the yellow sanicles that grow down near the coast on balds. But this one is very strong smelling. It has a really great smell, kind of cilantro-like smell. And the closest locations I could find for it in Whatcom County were from 1937. Muncher collected it on Church Mountain, but I think that might be the only collection in Whatcom County. So that was exciting. I'd seen it in BC before, but I had forgotten about it. It was only when I was looking through my records that I realized that it was one that I should have known. And here's it wasn't flowering anymore, but here's the seeds, I guess, young seeds developing. And then Vicki saw this too on Vetter Mountain, and it's also on this Red Mountain bald, and I've seen it on a couple other balds in Whatcom County, but this is a plectritis. You might recognize that it's a plectritis or sea blush, but this one has white flowers, and the whorls of flowers are a little more diffuse on the stem than the typically pink sea blush. And this one, let's see, Jim Demmel actually had an herbarium record of it in on Ross Lake on the Desolation Peak Trail, and there's one from Port Angeles, but it's I'd say an unusual plant in Whatcom County, or an underdocumented plant in Whatcom County. I think that these balds are just a little bit underexplored, actually, or at least people aren't collecting herbarium specimens when they explore them as much. So those were all exciting finds that I was really excited about. I'm sure that members of the group have seen all those plants before, but they were things that got my fancy. Here's another picture of that plectritis. So it was a good day, and let's see. Sorry, I'm just gonna open up another folder. I should have put these all in one folder. Share screen. Okay, another, can give me a thumbs up if you could see a picture of Mount Shuksan. All right. Picture of Mount Shuksan? Okay, great. So another exploration that kind of came about by studying some Google Earth air photos was a fen near what I've heard Vicki and others describe as like the Nooksack fen off of the forest road that goes up towards the Nooksack Cirque Trail. So on the east side of the bridge that goes over the North Fork as you're heading up towards Mount Baker near the Silver Fir Campground. But this was the Nooksack fen, as people described it, was wiped out by a change in the river course. But this appeared to be on a fairly recent air photo. So Katrina and I decided to check it out one day after we finished filming for my class. And we had to ford the river to get to it. And there's this amazing cottony fen. It looks like a cotton field with Mount Shuksan in the background. It's just so picturesque. Something about fens, they're always in these picturesque locations, it seems. And yeah, the Areophorus or cotton grass was spectacular there. And I didn't see any like outstanding, unusual plants, but you know, some interesting things like the Tophieldia, or now it's Triantha occidentalis, or sticky false asphodel was there, and lots of bog orchids. And I've been nerding out on sedges lately. So this is Carex echinata, which I think is a cool one. There was a little bit of cranberry, but not a lot. And a little bit of sundew, but not a lot of that either. Some bog buckbean. It was pretty sedgy and grassy. Lots of Canada blue joint grass. But this is sort of an unusual sedge. Mud sedge has a very unglamorous common name, but I think it's a dainty, beautiful, small sedge that wasn't abundant there, but I did find it in one small little pocket. So anyway, I think as soon as we could start doing field trips again, it would be great to try and get to the Red Mountain Bald. It's very accessible, and you know, it would be great in the spring. And on our way back from this other Nooksack fen, we found a logjam that was decently easy to cross. And so if it was still there next year or in some other year, maybe it'd be a good, a more accessible location for a plant trip. All right, the last, let's see, I'll stop sharing. The last thing that I want to share with you all is a trip that I took to Alaska, and this is going to be kind of a, Katrina and I went up to visit my brother. He's was spending the summer sailing in Alaska on a sailboat, and so we flew into Juneau and spent 8 days traveling by boat, and we explored a lot of shores and wetlands and islands and things like that. So I put together a little video, and let me, okay, I'm just getting it queued up here. Sorry, I should have this done. All right, can you see this travels in Southeast Alaska? Okay. So this is just a short kind of 5-minute musical video summary of our trip.
Abe, I'm hearing no music. I'm seeing the video, but hearing no music.
Well, that's disappointing.
The videos are awesome, though.
You can narrate.
Yeah, that's too bad though. Okay. Is it still on the video though? So we got to see a lot of great waterfalls. The landscape has just been chiseled by glaciers. There's big fjords, and so we sailed into the fjords, sometimes through tidal rapids at slack tide. And this is a place called Ford's Terror. And there's this kind of fault line that broke this fjord in half, and a waterfall kind of came pouring through the fault line area. The crazy thing about Alaska is that the alpine is so close to the ocean. Of course, there are tidewater glaciers in some places, but in many places you could just look up less than 1,000 feet and see the alpine on the ridgetop. We were in bear country, and so we found a salmon spawning stream, or a stream where the salmon were migrating up it, and pink salmon, and we saw a lot of bear, a lot of grizzly bear, only one black bear. Here's a mama with 3 cubs and some quarreling, probably 2-year-old bears. And in this shot, there are 6 different bears in one picture frame. Most of the trails we explored were actually bear trails, and a lot of times we just kind of bushwhacked. Of course, I was interested in the edibles, and here are a few of the cool edibles that we tried. Nootka lupin has an edible root. This angelica wasn't actually that good, but I heard it possibly could be eaten, so I tried it. This is another type of wild carrot that actually was pretty tasty. There aren't too many flat areas except for in the river deltas, and sometimes on these like glacial moraines. So here's a big river valley bottom that's been colonized by, lots of vegetation. And because it's so wet in Alaska, there are a lot of these sheet bogs or muskeg environments. And so that was the easiest walking around. It rained constantly while we were there. This is an unusual dogwood that I wasn't familiar with, Swedish dogwood. Some bog blueberries were in season, lingonberry. Cloudberry, which was I'd seen before but never eaten. It sort of tastes like a mix of pineapple and applesauce. Katrina wasn't wet enough, so she tried to go swimming here. You know, I've explored BC a lot, and I think the BC coastline is really amazing, but the forests there have just been ravaged by timber companies, and Southeast Alaska and the Tongass National Forest is really healthy. And, you know, there are these big trees with pretty, sometimes brushy, but sometimes pretty open understories, and it's just a lot easier to get around on foot. Yeah, when there isn't Devil's Club. So the only sunny day we had was our last day. This is us sailing back up Gastineau Channel towards Juneau. We actually saw a lot of whales on the trip, but I didn't get very good photos of them, so I didn't include that. So anyway, that was all I have to share. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Abe. That was another great presentation. So much cool stuff to see. I'm glad you were able to get out, and I hope others were as well. And I was some, and it's great to see we're still going despite all of this craziness around us. And looking forward to things getting better next year. All right.
Yeah, actually, before I mute myself, I just want to mention that if you're intrigued to hear the music behind the video, I uploaded it to YouTube, so you could just search my name, and it'll probably be in my feed as one of the more recent videos that I've uploaded.
You could put a link in the chat too if somebody wants.
Oh yeah, I'll do that. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, and next we have Fred Rhoades, and I encourage anybody who's interested in sharing some of their own pictures to pull them up on your computer, and then afterwards we'll you'd be willing to, you certainly could share some of yours as well. It's a pretty easy thing to do. So Fred, welcome aboard.
Okay, thanks. This won't be long, and it's not wild, although some of the bugs might be found in the wild. I've been working kind of as an adjunct with Anu, who has some students that were looking at pollinators around campus, and Jim Davis and I and a couple of other students have been doing looking at the plants that were coming out in my area, largely non-natives, and the pollinators that are on them, particularly focusing on the bumblebees. And see if I can get this to work. I think this is the right place. Yeah. So I just have a few bumblebees to share with you and other pollinators. Can everybody see something? And in particular, can you see up above where it says what the slide is? Because I can't see that, but
yes.
So I can't read that, and I can't remember what all these things are, but I'm not an entomologist. This is a beautiful fly, a green bottle fly, one of the many pollinators that we saw. In my own yard, the salal went absolutely crazy this year. And I was hoping to make a whole lot of salal jam, but I see the deer have eaten all of the berries in the front yard anyway. This is one of the Bombus species coming in for a lunch. Bombus melanopygus. It's one of the common ones early on. A closer view of the same thing. This on a spirea in the backyard, not a native spirea. And at the end, I have a short movie I took with my cell phone of, I'm not sure it was this guy or some other one, feeding on these. A very unusual behavior, I thought. I'd like to share it with you. This is a beautiful fly. If somebody could read the name, I'd know what it was. Beautiful thing on bronze fennel. Probably not only a non-native, but an invasive plant that I encourage in one area and it shows up everywhere else in our garden. But it has a lot of interesting pollinators on it.
It's one of the syrphid flies.
Interesting weevil-like beetle on a native thimbleberry. The honeybees have not been that common in the loop here around our home until very recently, when they have dominated here at the end of the season. But early on, this is on thyme, I think it says. Or is it sage? This is the sage. This is Bombus showing you how you properly enter one of these flowers. Going in the right way as far as the flower is concerned. Here's Bombus vosnesensky stealing nectar. You can't really make it out real clearly here, but he's bypassing going in here and going in down here with a little nip to steal the nectar without doing any pollinating. This is a dermestid beetle that was on a yarrow, and I didn't quite know what it was, but when I took the picture, and after I'd taken the picture, I noticed this little aphid or maybe springtail in the background here. And then this was a later picture of the beetle actually having gotten that. So this really isn't a pollinator. He's a predator, or she's a predator, after other things in the flowers. By far the most common bumblebee species that I've been seeing, and I think it may be true for Jim too, and I don't know about others, is Bombus vosnesensky that feeds on everything. Just amazing. And late in the season was pretty much the only bumblebee left down here. This is a black-tailed bumblebee, melanopygus, working its way in St. John's wort. And this was one of the behaviors. I didn't get a movie of this, but I thought it was quite different from what you usually see. Rather than going in for nectar or anything, this bee was apparently just feeding on pollen by flying back and forth through the stamens like this. It was quite something to see. And I think this is close to the end of the photos. What I took at the time, this is on a sedum, a yellow sedum, to be this Bombus vosnesensky, but it's a washed out morph. And it's not just because I adjusted the color to downplay the yellow. This was a white one. Now, whether this is that species or some other species, like the western bumblebee, not sure. The facial hairs on this one are slightly yellow, so I'm thinking that it is a Botanizing. And then we're back at the beginning. Now I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. And show you this video, which I took with my cell phone. There we are. And I encourage all of you who have cell phones to try this. I've been doing a little bit of this. I was looking at these are I think Bombus Botanizing pollinating the spirea in our backyard. Again, very interesting behavior because I think they're collecting pollen. But I did a slow motion setting, and I found out later here in this screen that I can constrict the amount of slow motion to just that much. And it actually, when it takes these slow motion pictures, it takes the full high-speed video, which you can play, which I will do here. And then you can, by sliding these things, restrict the amount of the slow motion you want to see. So anyway, this is useful because you can see how this guy, I hope you can see, and following these bees, they go crazy, flying from cluster to cluster, and then just working their way all over the surface of the flowers. I think they must be collecting pollen.
Yeah.
And somewhere here it will stop and slow down so we can. Not sure what's happening. There we go. Just keeping track of the bee sometimes is a little bit difficult. This is not National Geographic quality video, I'm sorry to say, but it does show you what they're doing. And unless they're very quickly dipping down in there to get nectar, maybe they are. There's the final bit with this other bee, wherever he is. Anyway, that's what I have to share.
Great, thank you, Fred. Curious how you took some of those close-up pictures of the insects.
I have a Sony full-frame mirrorless camera. What is it? 7.3R, I think it is, with a macro telephoto lens.
Okay.
And it takes huge pictures. They're 50 megapixel pictures. So you can get in there and crop out just the interesting part. And there's a lot of detail there. So the other secret, of course, to taking good photographs of things like insects is take hundreds of photographs and choose the 2 that are good. So that's how that's done.
Those are fantastic pictures. It was beautiful. Great. So does any of the attendees have any pictures they would like to share? If you do, go ahead and raise your hand. Hit the raise your hand button. Indicate. I'm not even sure actually how to do that. Usually it's pretty easy to do, but I don't see it on my own screen suddenly. Alternatively, put it in the chat and mention that you would like to share a picture. All right, looks like nobody's volunteering. Does anybody have any questions for one of our presenters about something they saw or anything that, any questions for them? And we'll just put that in the chat as well, and I'll read it off. Denise has posted a Bumblebees of Washington, a new website for identification of native bees. That sounds pretty neat.
I could just add a comment. I was at the same area in Alaska a year ago. Ford's Terror and some of those same cliffs and same waterfalls. Very familiar. I didn't see the bears up close though. We kept our distance.
Boy,
We could see not bears, but from pretty far away.
Yeah.
My
That
brother was
fault
hell
line.
bent on getting eaten.
And actually we had good weather. We only had maybe 2 days of rainy days out of 8. So a lot of nice weather. And then June a year ago.
I'm curious, Abe and Katrina, did you carry bear protection of bear spray or gun or what?
Yeah, we each had a can of bear spray and we shouted out a lot as we walked through the woods. But because the salmon were in the streams, it was pretty predictable that the bears would all be in the easy fishing spots on the rivers. So we never encountered a bear when we were bushwhacking. And actually, we only saw bears in 2 different spots on the whole trip.
Yeah, we saw bears from the boat up in the meadows, so we weren't too far away. And we were following bear trails on land a few times and saw footprints, fairly fresh. So yeah, the bears were certainly there.
One thing we also saw a lot of was we were following the bear trails a lot, but also a lot of evidence of bears digging in the dirt, especially in the marshes. They were just, and I know that I had known that they do that, but I didn't realize how much they do that. They're just holes, giant holes everywhere. Yeah, it was really interesting.
Getting food or?
Mm-hmm. They dig up the roots and eat the roots of the marsh plants.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else comments or questions? Sounds like not. All right. So I think what we'll do is we'll move to our sort of general meeting social half hour or whatever it'll be. So what we'll do is I'll promote all the attendees to be panelists and then everybody can talk. So I'll give a minute or two for those who aren't interested that they can just go ahead and log off, and then whoever's remaining in the attendees, I'll just promote and we can have kind of a free-for-all discussion, unless anybody else has anything to add.
I will add a comment that I actually should leave now. I've been outside breathing smoke for an hour and a half on
Yeah, Alan.
my neighbor's porch, so I think I'm going to head home. But it was great. Enjoyed the slideshows.